Good morning, Heritage Church. How you doing?
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you.
We're glad you're online with us. My name is Michael, and this is Pastor Suzanne. We're happy to be with you, whether you are watching this live on Facebook Live or you're watching it later on Facebook during the week, or sometimes people even watch it on YouTube even later than that. So we're glad you're here with us. Click on the link that's in the announcements on this post on Facebook Live. You can fill out a connection card for us. That lets us know that you're here for the first time, gives us some information, and we can send you some information about the church. There's also, if you are on Facebook Live with us, either live or later, feel free to interact. We're going to ask some questions. You can answer those questions. You can hit hearts or thumbs up and react. You can share this with your friends as well.
So good to have you. If you're our guest here, we know that you have many choices of messages. You could be listening online today, so we're glad that you're here. We would love to send you a sweet treat from us to you. Just send us a private message or put it in the comments, and we'll make sure that we can make that happen. All the announcements of what's happening in the life of Heritage are in our newsletter on our website. You can check that out at yourheritagechurch.com. Want to let you know that our County Line Road concert series is coming up. That's when we'll be out on the field in the whole month of September, every Sunday, enjoying hanging out, listening to good music with our friends and our neighbors. And also just want to let you know that we provide the weekend backpack food for James Clemens students. And if you'd like to help us with that, you can simply go to our website as well. And for $99, you can partner with us to make sure that a student in high school has food on the weekends for many of our food insecure students in our community. And we thank you for your support in that.
That's a pretty good deal, isn't it?
Pretty good
$99
deal.
to feed a kid.
We
for
can
the
do a
whole
lot
week.
of things together, can't we?
Yeah. We are in our message series, Grow Up. If you want to go back and watch last week's, we talked a little bit about how the world is struggling with its maturity sometimes, and that the church, get this, are the ones that are supposed to be the grown-ups in this world. We're supposed to the ones that are supposed to hold hard conversations in a polite way and not alienate people or make them, polarize the world. The church is supposed to be the ones that are bringing peace to the world. We're supposed to grow up, and that's great. That's such an important thing for this world to know. And so we're going to talk about that. How can we grow up as a church? There's a man who wrote a book. Suzanne's going to show you this book. It's Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. We did this course last spring. We did this course with our whole class. We piloted it. It's a great class that talks about, and Pete Cesaro says this. He says, it is impossible to be spiritually mature without being emotionally mature. And we just say a big, huge amen to that. Our emotions, and I don't think we understand this, are tied to our relationship with God. We sometimes emotionally spend our life hiding. If you're going to live life in our society and live up to somebody else's expectations, which is what most of us do, you're going to eventually come up empty. And God offers us a real life. It's a different life, but a real life. It's not a fake life. The vast majority of people go to their grave not really knowing who they are on the inside. And our life is like a blank sheet of paper, and we're taught as we're growing up as kids to conform, right? Conform to what, everybody expects of you. And then as an adult, you're taught that you're supposed to be informed, right? If I can just get smart enough, I'll be great. And what happens to a lot of us is we just become deformed, emotionally deformed, because we live our whole lives not really recognizing where all our feelings are coming from or trying to conform our emotions, and we miss who God really created us to be. See, when it comes to our emotions, we end up a lot of times either asleep or in denial or just numb to them. Our emotions, though, can unlock who we really are. Most discipleship, which is what this series is about us growing up to become fully who God wants us to be. Most discipleship never addresses emotions. The church is kind of really afraid of emotions, or it has been, right? But with God, emotions are not an afterthought. Actually, our emotions are a place to start to realize who you are really on the inside. That new self that God envisions for you starts with those emotions. we must allow ourselves to be self-aware when it comes to our emotions, because our emotions fuel our spiritual growth.
And the truth is, it's okay to have emotions. And as we get started and talk about how it's okay to have emotions, I have a question for you that you can answer in the comments. And it's simply this: what emotion are you most uncomfortable with? I mean, there's a lot of emotions. They say there's about 8 basic ones that we have, and some of them we're comfortable with and some of them we're uncomfortable with. So feel free to put that in the comments, and our host will help you comment amongst each other.
Oh, man.
You can have some conversation.
What about
Do you
you?
know what yours?
Oh, my own anger.
Oh, yeah.
I am most
yeah.
uncomfortable with because I don't know where it's going to go. So I try to squash that down so hard.
Sometimes I'm uncomfortable with sadness, because sometimes sadness is, what do they say, hurt is anger. No, anger is hurt with the mask on.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, we act certain ways. And so, there are lots of emotions that we can be uncomfortable with. And, we know that as human beings, we are emotional beings. You have never met a person who doesn't have emotions.
True.
The truth is, we struggle with our emotions, though. We struggle with how to manage them. We struggle with how to talk about our emotions. Even conversations about emotions we feel are kind of weird and we want to rush right past them. But it is hard to know God if you don't know yourself. In fact, at Heritage, our discipleship strategy is for you to know, go, grow, and pass it on. And each of those means something in our journey with God. But that first one is to know God. But it's just not to know God, it's also to know yourself. Because we believe that you have to know God, you have to know yourself, because that's the only way that you are truly going to know others. If you think about it, our emotions are meant to be felt. And when we don't feel them, it's almost like we lock ourselves in self-imposed prisons. And we present to the world this false, happy-clappy self instead of our true self that has a lot of things going on, as we talked about last week about the iceberg. Remember how there's, the iceberg, you can see what's above the waterline, but there's a lot underneath the waterline as well. Well, with us, there's a lot going on underneath our physical bodies, what's going on inside of us. The scriptures speak to this in the book of Ephesians, where we get these words where we're told, you were taught, and so were we in the world in which we live. We were taught to put off our old self and to put on the new self. That's what we're taught in our faith. That's what we're told we're to do. Yeah. Created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. We're taught that, but unfortunately, we don't always do that, do we? I mean, we deny ourselves. We deny the inner side of ourselves. And what could happen if we had permission? What if we could give ourselves permission? What if we could give others permission to express how they feel, to name their emotions, even the difficult ones like anger? Because most of the times when we feel anger, what do? We stuff it.
Yep, deep.
But you know what happens when we stuff it? Day after day, week after week, year after year, as we go along, we become a little less human. I heard somebody put it this way: we're like empty shells, many of us, with smiley faces. That's so sad. One of my favorite songs has this lyric in it. It says this: I hold it in and I fake a smile. How many times do you do that? How many times have I done that? And the truth is, our feelings, they leak. Sorry, but it's true. And I know my feelings have leaked, and some of you have probably been around when I've leaked.
Sometimes
a whole lot.
Gush.
Yeah, sometimes it's like a geyser, right? I'm so sorry when that happens. And sometimes something's going on with us and we haven't processed it, we haven't talked about it. And so what we do, we push on and we ignore it. We ignore the stress, we ignore the feeling, whatever's happens. And really when we do that, we're creating emotional abuse to ourselves, and sometimes we emotionally abuse others as we leak. But know this, it is okay to have emotions. But you also need to understand some things about emotions. Our emotions don't always define reality. Just because you think somebody or something is a certain way doesn't mean that it's true. Our emotions can be easily manipulated. I mean, we see that in the media.
Every day.
Our emotions can be influenced by physical. You ever had a few days or a few weeks where you don't sleep very well and all of a sudden you're super emotional? You get sad easy or you get mad, really quickly? Know this, when it comes to our emotions, it's okay to not be okay. We do not have to walk around like empty shells with smiley faces on. We don't have to do that. Know that our emotions are not inherently good or bad. Our emotions are neutral. Now, our emotions are not an excuse for bad behavior. Just because you're all in your feelings doesn't mean that you should treat other people bad. And our emotions, what we need to do is we need to pay attention because our emotions raise issues within our being. If you're feeling something, you need to get curious about why you're feeling that. Because here's what we know. Our emotions fuel spiritual growth.
You know, I think what we don't really understand is that God has emotions. You know, I'm not sure how we view God. I think we view God as either happy or really, really angry, right? You know, I don't think we understand the complexity of God's emotionality. You know, we view God as this distant sometimes, uncaring, removed, maybe no emotions whatsoever towards us, like he just doesn't care. And in both the Old Testament and the New Testament, we see a full range of God's emotions. God, our God, is a feeler, believe it or not. You know, and so what emotion do you think of when you think of God? That's our question for you. Answer it on the Facebook Live in the comments, talk back and forth. You know, give hearts, give thumbs up if you agree with somebody. But what emotion do you think of when you think of God? What do you think of, Suzanne?
When I think of God, I like to focus on the I don't like to focus on the angry God so much.
Yeah.
I like to focus on the merciful and the kind and the loving God. That's kind of where I like to focus. What about you?
Sometimes a part of me is intrigued by the jealous God.
Yeah, that's a good one
God's
too.
a little jealous for me. God,
Yeah.
are you a little insecure about our relationship? Did I make you that way? I'm sorry. You know, just something like that. Just silly, but I know God's going to have it out with me later. Okay, but the scriptures say this, and I love this. This is in Jeremiah, and this is in the Old Testament. You know, the God everybody thinks of as the angry God. God says this. He says, I have loved you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you with kindness.
See?
That's, you know, you got to love God's ability to love, but there's so much more to God's emotions. You know, in Genesis, he says that humanity is good, that he looks at what he created, and he just is delighting in us. In Genesis 6:6, he kind of flips it a little bit because he looks at humanity and he feels some deep regret and remorse for making us at all. And that's right before the flood. In Exodus 20, he's troubled by us. In Isaiah 42, he's jealous. That's the one I'm kind of intrigued by that. In Jeremiah, he cries out in pain over humanity. In Hosea, he shows a compassion, that his heart just is filled with compassion. In Matthew, he's sorrowful, he's troubled. In Mark, he's angry and deeply distressed. In Luke, he's full of joy. In John 11, Jesus weeps openly. The truth is that God's emotions run the gamut, from despair to joy. You know, and human beings are made in God's likeness. And we're feelers too.
I'm a feeler.
Yeah, you're full-on feeler. Her and our granddaughter are like, they're besties and they're twinsies too on their emotionality because they're just full-on feelers. And maybe I needed a full-on feeler in my life because I'm a stuffer, right? So, but human beings are made in God's likeness. We're feelers too. But we're taught from an early age, and I was taught, especially, and boys get this a lot, rub some dirt in it, suck it up, put your big boy panties on, right? We're told that it's wrong to feel. And we have to learn, we have to relearn to be honest with our emotions instead of shutting them down, because when we shut them down, we close the door to know ourselves, to know other people, and to know God. We have to be careful to understand, to recognize that, you know, when it comes to our emotions, we aren't what we do. And when it comes to our emotions, we aren't what we have, you know? And when it comes to our emotions, we aren't what others think of us. We allow our emotions to drive us in all those areas. You know who we really are? We are who we are deep on the inside, even if we can't see it at times. What's really deep down in there is who and what we are, and we got to learn to bring that out. Knowing God has emotion helps us, has emotions, helps us. We have to start to become comfortable with our interior life because all of your emotions are valid. You know, St. Augustine said this. He said, "Grant, Lord, that I may know myself so that I might know thee." In other words, help me see me for who I really am deep down on the inside so that I could really start to understand you, that I'm built in your image. You know, our emotions fuel spiritual growth.
And so, knowing that we are emotional creatures, knowing that we need to be self-aware, we have to learn how to manage our emotions. They exist. We feel emotions because we're emotional creatures. Our God feels emotions. So the question to ask ourselves is kind of a simple one, but it's pretty profound. Do we manage our emotions, or do our emotions manage us?
Yikes.
And where in your life do you find it hard to just be yourself? And what if you could look at yourself and the emotions that stir within you? What if you could look upon those as you might look on, as on a tender child, as a small child? What would you do if a small child had emotions? You care for it. Why can't we do some soul care for ourselves? And we have to do that self-work. It's going to take self-work for us to learn to feel again. As Michael says, we've numbed ourselves so bad that some of us have forgotten how to feel. And we're taught as we're growing up that the only thing that matters is our IQ, how smart we are. But there's a whole field of science now about our EQ, our emotional quotient. And they say that our emotional quotient is just as important as our IQ, and actually probably leads to a happier life more so than your IQ ever had. Daniel Goleman, who did his groundbreaking work in this, says this about EQ. He says, if your emotional abilities aren't in hand, if you don't have self-awareness we were talking about, if you're not able to manage your distressing emotions, if you can't have empathy and have effective relationships, then no matter how smart you are not going to get very far. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like that real life, that abundant life that Christ wants to offer us. So I wonder if we could get curious. I wonder if we could step outside of ourselves and view our emotions as if we were an outsider, as if you were just a casual observer. I know a therapist that says that when we feel these emotions, we need to kind of pull them up and take a look at them and let them float on by. You see, if we want to know God, we've got to know our emotions. We've got to be self-aware. But what are some ways that we can manage our emotions? Well, one of the things we can do is acknowledge their presence. Quit stuffing. Quit ignoring them. Even when you feel something negative, get curious. Why am I feeling this way? And then we can manage our emotions by choosing our reaction. You are ridiculously in control of how you choose to respond to your emotions. And then we can use our emotions to form connections. If we're under a crazy, stressful season, we can say, you know what, I am feeling so stressed out, and you can say,
Not me too.
yeah, and you know what? There's power in saying me too. It forms connections because we're all emotional beings and we feel these things. We can manage our emotions by owning our emotions. Your emotions are yours to feel. No one else should have to carry your emotions for you. You own your emotions and speak your truth. Have the vulnerability and the courage to say how you're feeling. It hurt my feelings when you said this, whatever it might be. I'm not talking to you right now. And then
You'll have
also,
a chance later.
also remember to utilize appropriate disclosure. Have you ever been around somebody who word vomits their emotions on you? And it's almost inappropriate, all the things, because they're just bleeding off stress. And you want to think about, what is appropriate disclosure? Is the environment safe? Is it a safe environment where I can do that? And then we need to learn to quiet our souls. And maybe that's most important of all if we're going to learn to manage our emotions. Because the truth is, we live in a distracted world. And if we're going to learn how to manage our emotions, we're going to have to pay attention to our emotions. And that might require some silence and some solitude. And for a lot of us, that makes us really, really uncomfortable. But that silence and solitude will help us on our journey to emotional maturity. If we're going to learn to manage our emotions, we've got to. I saw a meme last week. It said this. It said, be brave enough to do something you don't know how to do. The truth is, for a lot of us, we don't know how to grow in emotional maturity. But maybe we could start by asking ourselves a question. Just write this question down this week and think about your inner self. Think about your emotions and write this question down. What I'm learning about myself is. It's kind of a fill in the blank question, right? What are you learning about yourself right now? What have you learned about your emotions? What do you know about yourself? And recognize this, we're all a work in progress. None of us ever arrive when it comes to emotional maturity, just as none of us ever arrive when it comes to spiritual maturity. But we're doing it, maturity, we're doing it together. Like I said, we're all a work in progress,
Yes.
right? But the truth is, how are we going to affirm other people if we don't affirm ourselves? It is time. It is time for us to be comfortable with who we are. It is time for us to recognize who God created us to be. And it is time for all of us to know that our emotions fuel our spiritual growth.
It's so important to understand that. Every week at Heritage Church, we try to offer you some next steps that you can kind of take in your faith. One of the great things that we're doing, we did emotionally healthy spirituality in the spring. There's a second half to this called emotionally healthy relationships. So if you are interested in the emotionally healthy relationships course, email us quickly and let us know so that we can get you in the class. It's going to start in September. I think it's the second week in September we're going to start. We're going to have it on Tuesday nights. So sign up for this course. It's 8 weeks, but this will affect the rest of your lives.
And if you can't take the course because you're online, you can also get the book.
You can get the book. I mean,
but we'd
there's
love to
a
have
book.
you in the course.
Pete Cesaro, you can get his book and read the book. It's a great course to take, though, and it'll help you get to know the people in there, and you'll get to learn this together, how to have emotionally healthy relationships. And the second thing is, sign me up. I want to serve at the County Line Road Concert Series. Some of you at home because you don't want to be in big crowds, and that's understandable with all the illnesses going around right now. But when you're at County Line Road Concert Series, you're outside. It's a great way to serve with all your church family, get out, see everybody again. Plus, there's free music, so we need you to help. If you'd like to help, please, again, email us, pastors@yourheritagechurch.com, and let us know. Hey, I want to serve at the County Line Road Concert Series. We have a lot of great ways to serve and meet our neighbors while we're doing it. And then the next one is I want to put my trust in Jesus. Jesus wanted us to get in touch with who we were created to be, the original us. And one of the ways we start doing that is to get baptized. If you've never been baptized before, we'd love to share that with you. Let us know if you want to do that. If you want to put your trust in Jesus or you want to be baptized, that baptism is literally a symbol of a rebirth, becoming who we were supposed to be in the first place, not what the world wanted to make us. We actually are celebrating 2 baptisms today. Who do we have? We have Charlotte King
And Evelyn Miles.
and Evelyn Miles. 2 young ladies that have come to be baptized. They wanted Jesus in their hearts. So if that's what you want, if that's what you want to celebrate, please let us know. We'd love to share that moment with you. Also at Heritage Church, our offerings are for people that consider Heritage Church their church home, and we're so thankful to those that give to support the mission here. Things like the County Line Road Concert Series, the baptisms we get to celebrate with the kids, the youth group we had the other night that was just so amazing. So there's 3 ways to give. You can give on the link give on our website, at the giving link on our website. It's secure. You can text an amount to 84321. It will take you right to that website again, to that link. Or you can just mail something in to the church. That's a great way to do it if you're at home right now. If you're a guest online, please don't feel like you need to give. This service is actually our gift to you.
So we want to remind you that we stream every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. We love to be with you. If there's any prayer requests, you can drop them in the chat. If you'd like to venture into an in-person service, we have those at 9 and 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings. And please let us know if you need anything. If there's anything we can pray for you or do for you or help you with, please let us know. And would you pray with me as we get ready to go into the worship portion of our online service this morning? God, we love you. And God, I just ask that all those who have tuned in this morning, God, that they would have felt and heard the power of your Holy Spirit. I pray that you will draw them close to you. God, I pray that we all would be mindful that we need to raise our self-awareness, that we need to understand that the emotions we feel are a gift from God. Lord, help us to pay attention to them. Help us to be aware of them. Help us to know and recognize that every person we meet is an emotional creature as well. Help us be mindful that our God is a God of emotions. And God, teach us how to manage our emotions. Most of all, God, so that we can have better relationships with the people that are near us, and better relationships with you. Oh God, teach us to grow emotionally so that we can grow spiritually and be better disciples, followers of you. It's in your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, y'all have
Love
a
y'all.
great week. Enjoy the music. We love you.
Love you guys.
Bye-bye.